you were much more, committed, plugged in.
Oh, yeah.
You made the decision and you dove in head first.
Yeah, and so did Ginn's deal, and that was good, and then the wheels fell off of that. So I had Monster. That was my they were my people. Still today we are partners, and I'll forever be thankful. I've been with them since basically the inception of Monster Energy.
Yeah.
2004 or 5, I think. And everything went sideways again, and that ended. And then I got an opportunity. Monster's like, hey, what do you want to do the next year? And then I ended up doing the East Series, and I drove for Schrader. It was freaking awesome, man. I love that dude.
Time out though. What happened again? What went sideways again?
The whole
thing.
company fell apart.
Yeah, I think Bobby's investors said, hey,
we're out of money.
We're out of money, and we're going to quit giving you money if you don't sell this race.
I don't remember. That's how Ginn ended.
He had the resorts, right? And he was funding he was buying and funding everything, and they were like, hey, man, this is not going to work financially. You got to stop. So he had to.
That was it.
Racing ended.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
That's
so
right.
You went to Schrader.
Went to Schrader, and I ran the East Series, and did pretty well. Got a pole at South Boston. I can't remember what I got overall in the series, but the crazy thing was the dudes that I was racing at the time, Austin Dillon, Trevor Bain, Jeffrey, I want to say Almirola was in there.
Probably.
Was he for the DEI's development?
Yeah,
I actually flew up and met with DEI one time with Mark. I flew up, and we were because I had the Monster money, and we had a meeting, and anyhow, it didn't work out, and I'm glad that I drove for Schrader, because it was just I had a hell of a time. It was so much fun, and I learned a lot. Yeah. I felt like he gave me so much advice that I could bring along. So, raced the East Series. That would have been 2008, I believe. Yeah, 2008. And I'm sitting in Charlotte Airport, and I get a call from Kevin Harvick, and he says, "Hey, man, what's happening next year? I've been watching you on the East Series, and I ran good at Loudon too. I think it was shortly after Loudon. I think I got 4th at Loudon that year." And he says, "What are you doing next year?" He says, "We'd love to have you drive for our truck team." I'm like, man, that's awesome. So I contact Monster, and we fly out, or we meet with everyone at KHI, and they say, hey, this is what it's going to take for the full year, but this is what we think you need to do. And I ended up running a partial schedule, and that was it. So after that was 2009. After that, they're like, hey, this is what it's going to cost to run the next year full time. So that would have been 2010, 2011. And Monster's like, well, we just have this much, so you need to figure out what you're going to do with this much. We'd really like to see you in the full series. So at this time now, Steve Turner starts a race car team, and he was going to be in alliance with KHI, and Kevin hooked me up with him. Says, hey, he'll run you the full series for the money that you have. And then I went and we did a 2-year deal there with Steve, which Steve was always great to me, and it was a great experience for sure. And that's basically that was how that got going. Went good, did some good things, ran good, some good at some places. I think the highlights of it is I got 4th at Talladega, 4th at Dover. I got the pole at Atlanta. Led a bunch of laps at Martinsville. I absolutely loved Martinsville. Because of the timing, on the brakes, off the brakes, gas, it really brought me back to Supercross, and having to have that precision and timing and braking, and if you didn't brake right or didn't let off right at the right time, you paid consequences. There are consequences, as you know. So this gets into the next fun thing. At the end of my 2-year deal at Turner, Monster comes to me and says, hey, we're going to sponsor Kyle Busch's nationwide team. I'm like, all right. And they're like, we want you to be the driver of the races that he doesn't do. So however many Xfinity races there was at the time, let's just say, well, how many are there normally, Dale? Xfinity races.
In a full season?
36.
36. So
like
he was going to do, let's just say, 13 for KBM, somewhere around there, and I was going to do the remainder. And I'm like, man, this is an incredible opportunity. Got a great mentor. Guy knows how to drive. Everything's good. We're sitting in a parking lot. My manager and I, now my best friend, he does all my stuff now, and he's talking with Rick Wren, and like, okay, had all the financials set and allowances, blah, 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 and the plan. And this is Friday, the morning of the truck race, the fall truck race at Texas. And he says, fly up to Charlotte on Tuesday, and we'll sign this thing. Perfect. So
it's done. I mean, like, this thing is done. You're figuring out when signatures and announcements are happening.
Yeah. No, like, I'm flying up here Tuesday to sign.
To be done, yeah.
That night at the truck race, Kyle spins horn out and under caution laps.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Ron Hornaday dust, the major one. Oh, yeah.
So Sunday or Monday might have been, they call and they're like, hey, can't come up. Let's wait. There's a lot of moving parts. Not sure.
Kyle's busy.
What's Monster going to do? Is Monster going to step in if Mars pulls out? I mean, I'm sure you guys heard everything happening. And so I'm like, oh, man. So anyhow.
Oh, that's right, because Mars was threatening to pull out of the whole smash, like the cup, everything. So Kyle was effectively trying to fight for his career at that point.
Yeah, 100%.
After one weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So anyhow, wheels get back on track. So we're going to Homestead. Everything's good. We're like shooting high fives, right? And I think Kyle raced the truck race that night at Homestead, and like, hey, fly up on Wednesday. That way it'd give us a chance to do the Xfinity banquet and the truck banquet down there. I'm like, okay, no problem. And so Sunday, if you go back, this is when Kurt was driving for Penske.
Yep.
And he had that issue with Doc Punch.
Yes. He cussed Dr. Jerry Punch out. He's blew the engine of his car, last race of the year, gets out in the garage, and they're waiting on the interview to come live. Dr. Jerry Punch is waiting on the booth to send it down to him, and he's like, hey, Kurt, sorry for holding you up. And Kurt just starts chewing his tail.
It's so unlike
It's all on video.
I think that piece may have come out of your transmission with the grill. You were in front of him.
That just makes me feel a lot better, Doctor. Can you get this motherfucker out of my face?
I haven't even seen the video.
Sucks for
you
Doc.
have it? It's worth it. You should
sucks.
watch it. Yeah.
It sucks. You feel terrible for Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah.
But it was Kurt at his lowest.
He
might have actually been lower at certain points, but it was him at the end of his rope there.
So, as you can imagine, I mean, now that you guys know what happens now, but so I get another one of those calls on Monday. He's like, hey, can't come up Wednesday. I'm like Groundhog Day over here. It's like, okay.
No, wait a second. You are fair to ask, though. This is not the right Busch. So why am I worried about this?
Yeah, but
why
I kind of had so Penske fires Kurt on Monday, right? Mm-hmm. Or Tuesday, let's say Monday or Tuesday. Anyhow, he gets fired.
Okay. Or
released rather, and they call me. I'm the next call, and they're like, "Hey, don't come up Wednesday. There's some things that are going down, and we'll get back with you." I'm like, all right. And as soon as he got released, I knew exactly what was going to happen.
They were going to hire him.
I mean, it's his brother.
I don't know, though.
And he's better.
I would have still thought it was a coin flip because they may be brothers, but they didn't always like each other.
Well, but at the same time, I know Monster likes to win, and I know Kyle does, and Kurt's a hell of a lot better driver than I am, way more accomplished, so the writing was on the wall. I wasn't stupid. And I appreciate Monster even considering me to be a part of that program when from the inception. But as soon as so anyhow, long story short, few weeks went by, and they called me. My boss at Monster called me, says, "Hey man, this is the route we're gonna go," and blah blah blah. And I was totally understandable. So at that point on, boom, I was dust in the wind. my four-wheel career ended, boom, just like that.
Right, like that. You were almost in this car,
It was going to be a 2-year deal.
One of the better cars in the series, and
I have a question for you. Yeah, I was going to be in that as a 2-year deal.
yeah.
And it's going to be fun, man, because, like, Danica is coming up. And, like, I remember, like, Monster's like, dude, if you could just run with her, I think it's a cool story. You two are kind of on the same progression, and you're coming from this you're then in this end of the spectrum. She's coming from there. There was a story within the race. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you, had I went there and it worked out, and it being a startup team, do you think that it would have given me everything that I needed, or would I have been better at a more established organization?
Well, I think that, Kyle's team at the time was, so Kyle would run his own car, and then Kyle would run Gibbs stuff. And you could then very, very easily kind of compare where Kyle's personal team was versus the cars that Gibbs could provide him. You could see a difference in how far KBM had to go to get where they wanted to be. They eventually shut down his Xfinity program for whatever reason. But had he maintained that program, I think that he would have similar success as JRM. He could have maybe even became the Joe Gibbs Busch, outfit where Joe's drivers would drive for Kyle's team. And maybe Kyle envisioned that happening one day, but you would have, probably not. It wasn't the very best car, but it was a top 10 car. And Kyle could get in it, and you could see how where he was dominant, literally almost a lock to win in Joe's car. He would drive his car the next week, and everybody could run with him, and you could beat him. That was the difference in his team at the time. So I don't know how that would have worked out for you. I really don't.
Yeah.
That might have been a good experience. It might have been a frustrating one or a difficult one.
They only won one race that year.
I think with
Richmond, right?
Kurt at Richmond. Yeah.
And Kurt's way better driver than I am.
What's interesting is probably the difference in expectations. I would imagine Kyle would have an expectation regardless of your inexperience or whatever, but like if, he wants to win.
Yeah.
Monster said they just want you to beat Danica. Is that what you?
That's kind of what I got out of it.
I don't think that really matches up well. Like those two things. I don't know how.
Okay, yeah, like Monster's expectations
and Kyle's expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's shocking though. I mean, what did you do?
I think a lot of people in y'all's world always wondered, like, man, what happened?
Right.
And like even in my world, people's like, why'd you quit racing? That's right. And this is the first time I've ever really told this story, across the air. And it's been so long now, but
so the next season,
I'm done.
Right.
So then I'm just hanging out. But I had Brand. So to this day, I'm a brand ambassador for a lot of my sponsors. Still, Monster, Fox, the apparel company that I always wore their gear. I'm an ambassador for them. Triumph Motorcycles now. At the time, I was still busy with Suzuki, being an ambassador for them, riding their race bikes and testing and development, things like that. Dabbling a little bit at the Supercrosses and the TV.
But hold on a second. You were done because you didn't have any other opportunities there. However, it's fair to say that you got a lot of opportunity. I mean, like people were calling you up. Why is Casey Kane even calling you up to offer a late model at the time? Why are these people doing that? And so you had all these opportunities. Now you don't. So how hard did you beat down the drum and knock on doors to go try to find another ride?
I didn't, because I'm not that kind of guy. I'm horrible at asking someone for, hey man, will you?
So you didn't even go to Monster and say, I know y'all are doing this thing with Kurt, but is there any opportunity for me to be anywhere?
I mean, I may have, but yeah. I knew, like they just said, hey.
What was I got to ask you, out of all of the things that you did, racing the late model in Florida, trucks, when did you have the most fun behind the wheel? Like what car
in the E series and the Xfinity series?
You enjoyed those cars?
Yeah, I always felt like I did better in the cars than I did in the trucks.
Yeah.
I think the way that they were shaped, aero. I mean, I go back to the truck series and the guys that I was having to race, Hornaday, Skinner, Bodine. I mean, you name them. I mean, those guys are aces, man. They raced in the Cup Series, and then now they're racing the Truck Series. And I have literally zero four-wheel experience,
right.
And I grew up on dirt my whole life, and I don't know anything about aerodynamics. And as soon as I figured out aero and how to pass and when to use it to your advantage, it was too late. It was like the last half of the year of the Truck Series, and I was at that point it was over.
Yeah.
But I liked the Xfinities. I liked those cars. I felt comfortable in those cars, and then the E Series was a lot of fun as well.